go over some of the different information there. And then very specifically, we're going to get into some of the instructional planning around scheduling and the delivery model. We will spend some time, not as much as last time, on some of the health and safety procedures, working to answer some of the questions that came up. We will talk a little bit more about timeline and next steps, and then we will open it up to questions and answers. So one of the things that we've done from the spring of last year until now is we've used a platform called Thought Exchange. And we've sent a number of surveys to parents embedded within our weekly updates or through communication that we send out. And two of the questions that are here are questions that we asked in the Thought Exchange. The first one, as we continue to manage the impact of COVID-19, what are your thoughts and questions about a response? And how can we best support each other? And one of the things that we heard loud and clear, and the top response to that. So the platform, just to get back to what the platform does, is it lets you put in a thought, and then as others go into the platform, they can rank the thoughts that they're seeing. So if there's something that is expressed that resonates with them as well, they would rank it and put a response to it so that it comes higher up into the information sharing. So in this poll, our top response was actually quite intuitive and thoughtful in thinking about how do we ensure that our staff and students are not getting burnt out by the environment that they are in right now. And it was something that we took to heart and wanted to make sure that we were varying our approaches and our communication strategies to try to make sure that parents, families, students, and our staff, our own staff, were not getting burnt out by the virtual environment. There was definitely a lot of learning as we went out and went through the early spring, and it can be tiring and sometimes frustrating. So the next poll that we put out was around, what are the first things that come to mind when thinking about your child's return to school next year? And again, some great responses to some great thoughts that came up. And one of them was, making sure that changes to safety guidelines are shared out before the start of school. One of the other thoughts that came out was concern regarding the lack of hands-on learning missed during COVID. And then a final one was making sure that my child isn't behind. How am I going to ensure that my child is caught up when they return to school? And on that last one, I can reassure parents that we are making sure through our approach and through our planning that we're going to meet students wherever they're at, and we're going to support them and make sure that there is no sense of feeling behind. Wherever they are, we will support them and go forward from there. Next is program updates, and there's a link again there for the information. As I shared earlier, we've put out a number of parent updates or weekly updates throughout the spring, throughout the end of the school year, and even over the summer. And just if you haven't been receiving them, we want to make sure that you are. So make sure that we have the most current and up-to-date contact information. And then the last point I wanted to make here is, and I think I put it in the chat while people were in the waiting room, was the parent survey that we released last week. It's still open, so if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the parent survey, please feel free to do so. School reopening. As we talked a lot about last week, we've been working hard to create our reopening plan. And as the guidance here, shows, the guidance that the state put out was instrumental in that and helping to identify the different areas that we needed to consider in reopening. We've been planning for reopening since the spring and into the early summer, working to make sure that we were ready to go for reopening. As you know, all districts had to post their reopening plans by July 31st, and then we also had to sign off on assurances that we had to submit to the state. I want to emphasize in this that the plan that is on our website is exactly that. It is a draft. And we fully intend that that draft will change as additional guidance comes out and as feedback is received through our forums, through engaging with staff. We want to make sure that we're gathering as much feedback as we possibly can. And then also we expect a decision from Governor Cuomo this week on what reopening will look like in the fall. We are expecting that within the next couple days. So I'm not going to read through these, but these were included in the presentation from last week as well. These are all the different assurances that we needed to make sure we're part of our plan, and you probably can see that if you've looked at our plan, you see the different categories within our plan that follow these bullets. So our planning process has been, as I mentioned, an ongoing process as we've gone throughout the spring and into the summer. We started with a core planning team here at BOCES and worked with varying subcommittees, and we continue to do that. So what we did is, using all the different information that's identified here, governor's executive orders, different information from DOH, the State Education Department, local health departments, and the CDC, we developed our plan. We've been constantly collecting survey data from parents and teachers through the Thought Exchange, as well as the more specific survey that was released last week. And we've used that data to further develop and tweak our plan, and to give us, a lot of information around what do we need to make sure is included within our Q&A. And we will continue to review the plan and make appropriate recommendations and comments, and then we will use it to submit our final plan that we are working to finalize by the middle of August, so within the next couple of weeks. So we're going to get into instructional planning, and I'm going to ask both Kim and Denise to talk a little bit about this. But before we do, I wanted to just share some information. You're going to hear these terms used an awful lot at the state level and within our planning: synchronous and asynchronous. And they're confusing because of their similarity. But the synchronous is, you have the clock there. Synchronous is at the same time. So all the students learn at the same time. Communication is happening in real time. Because of that, there's more opportunity for collaboration. So it can be very engaging, and it allows instant feedback and clarification. So video conferencing like Zoom that we were using, those would be examples of synchronous. So asynchronous is when students learn at different times. So the communication is not live. It could be chat or email. It can still be very effective, and actually it's more flexible to students and parents. So we're using a variety of both models, and it allows students to work at their own pace. So making sure that materials are available to students to go at their own pace and reviewing. It could be a recorded video that people are watching, maybe replaying a specific portion of it. So those are the different different models of our virtual instruction: synchronous and asynchronous. Does anybody have any questions that they have on that? Just feel free to submit in the chat. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to both Mrs. Fernandez-Palazzi and Ms. Sparkman to talk a little bit about CTE instructional programming.
Thank you, Anthony. I already saw in the chat that someone was asking about whether or not CTE would be returning to school 100% of the time. And as you can see here, that is the goal. The goal is to have 100% of our students to be in person. However, we are basically subjected to whatever the governor's decision will be, and we are planning accordingly. We are making plans to be 100% in person, but we're also making plans to have these blended environments, as Anthony just referred to them, as synchronous and asynchronous. So if we're blended, or if we're fully remote as needed, we will have a plan in place, and we will make scheduling adjustments as allowed. Some of our school districts have already put out their plans, and have these blended plans in place while others have very different plans. Questar 3 is going to be accepting all students 100% of the time, and we hope that they will be coming to us exactly that 100% of the time. Of course, we're going to make accommodations for medically vulnerable students, and we are going to make sure we have the ability to shift to remote learning very efficiently and very smoothly should the need be. I wanted to speak more specifically about synchronous and asynchronous and what that looks like in CTE. So in CTE, we know that hands-on learning is critical. And that was the primary concern this past spring when our students were home for virtual learning. We have made accommodations for that. Our principals for all of our programs are committed to making sure that our teachers have the supplies that they need in order to be able to instruct with students in their seats and simultaneously provide that same level of instruction to students who may be at home. So that a student that is at home is watching and learning and experiencing the same thing as a student as they are sitting in a seat in a classroom. So we've made provisions for that, and we're hoping that no matter how our students come to us, we'll be able to provide a meaningful hands-on experience.
Thank you, Denise. Kim, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
No, I would just echo that absolutely, that while they're with us, we will really use that opportunity to do a lot of the hands-on, and that we are really working with our teachers to explore ways that they can still conduct demonstrations, even if it's remotely. The students will still feel very much a part of the shops and of the places.
Great.
If I can add, Anthony, just one more thing.
Sure.
I neglected to mention that as you know, parents of our CTE students, you're familiar with the fact that our students end the program with what's known as a technical assessment. That is the end of course exam for all of our students. We're using this opportunity to take that same technical assessment and start our programs with that test as a pre-assessment so that we can develop a baseline, if you will, for where our students are at, so that we'll be able to much more effectively target our instruction on an individualized basis, so that we know students coming into our program that have no experience in cosmetology, for example, versus some students that may already be a little bit more advanced, we'll be able to target our instruction very specifically to each student's needs. And that's something that we're going to be introducing with our programs this fall.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise. So our next slide is a summary of the health and safety guidance that was shared at last week's meeting. And based upon the survey that we did at the beginning, large percentage of our participants this evening were present last week. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but if there's something specific that you have a question on that you would like us to go over, please feel free to submit that in the questions, and we will make sure that we go over that specifically. So I would like to go over that health and safety screenings, for instance. Every staff member will be doing a daily health screening, including a temperature check. So we have a survey tool that we're going to be using with all of our staff to make sure that that if they have experienced any symptoms, if they've been in contact with anybody that has tested positive, and in any way, whether they tested positive or were experiencing symptoms, we would be aware of that within their survey response. Temperature checks will be part of daily admittance for both students and staff. I want to go over face coverings very quickly. While we will be structuring breaks in our regular instruction all time, students are going to be wearing face coverings much of the day while they're at our centers. We will make sure that face covering breaks are provided throughout the day, but it is important to make sure that both students and staff are following the appropriate use of PPE, and the face coverings would be part of that. Healthy hygiene practices, again, here, we're really going to make sure that, students and staff are aware of the different ways in which they can make sure that they're part of this through hand washing. We'll have stations throughout the building for using hand sanitizer. So they will definitely be part of that. Denise, I want you to just talk a little bit about one of the things we want to make sure is embedded within our practices here is student involvement in healthy hygiene practices. And that includes cleaning and disinfection of our equipment. Denise, could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure thing. So we actually posed that question to the New York State Education Department, specific to the CTE division at State Ed. And we asked them, as part of a CTE student typical curriculum, there is safety training. There is a certain level of cleanliness and disinfection that needs to take place anyway as part of a student's practice in the industry. So our request to State Ed was whether or not we could allow our students, again, as part of their typical curriculum, to continue with that practice. And they are in support of that and have delivered that message to us in writing. So currently, Questar will be continuing with allowing our students, as their normal course of curriculum, to be able to clean and sanitize equipment in between student use so that at any given time, they're taking the safety precautions necessary to protect themselves as well as the other students in the class.
All right.
Before you move on, Anthony, I'm sorry, just to let everyone know that in the chat, there is a link to a document that outlines in full detail every single one of these categories. So if you would like much more detail in a written form, you can click on that and it should bring you to a Google Doc that has all of this summarized for you.
All right. So I want to just quickly share some of the parent survey results, and this data is specific to CTE parents. So one of the questions that we asked in our parent poll was regarding how comfortable parents would be with having their child return to a Q3 school building in the fall. And as you can see here in the polling data, so we have 6.67% of parents who are very concerned, I do not want my child returning to a school building. 44%, almost 45%, who are somewhat comfortable, need more information. And then about 48, 49% who are completely comfortable and look forward to having their child return to school in Q3 school buildings. So this purple category right here and the red category, I would encourage you to, as you think of things that the more information that you need and questions that you have, please, we encourage you to submit those questions to us so that we can answer them and also include them on our Q&A section within our website. And I would just emphasize too that this is live data, so our survey is still active. If you have not yet participated, you still have the option to do so. So here's just another visual indication of some of the responses. Top concerns, what health and safety concerns do you have about your child returning? And you can see here, students not taking hygiene, PPE, and social distancing seriously. I will share that that's also a concern of ours, and we want to make sure that through proper training in the fall, as soon as students return, that we are really emphasizing appropriate use of PPE and social distancing and making sure that hand hygiene is very important.
Anthony, if I may.
Sure.
For parents of students in CTE, you know safety is our #1 priority. PPE is part of a student's language and vocabulary in CTE. Again, part of their normal course of their curriculum. They already tend to take their personal protective equipment quite seriously. Now we have an opportunity to emphasize it even more. And if you could follow that lead at home and make that emphasis with your children, we would appreciate your support.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Denise. All right, as we are going on to just some of the survey results, concerns that were shared. So Denise, do you want to take this slide?
So some of the concerns that were shared as a result of the survey are indicated here. So for health and safety, we saw that some parents had expressed their concern about medical conditions of their family members at home, and we understand that and are equally sensitive to that as well. Students being nervous and anxious, faculty following PPE rules, and adequate supplies of PPE. We can assure you that our faculty follows PPE rules. Again, this is part and parcel to their curriculum. It always has been. This is part of the curriculum that they teach our students. And as far as the adequate supplies of PPE, our Director for Health, Safety, and Risk, his name is Craig Hansen, and he joined us on last week's Parent Forum. He's already indicated and assured us that this organization has secured the necessary PPE to make adequate provisions for all of our campuses, for all of our students and our staff. As far as instruction is concerned, access, oops, we lost the presentation.
Kim, can you put that back up, please? Is it back up?
Not yet.
All right. Sorry about that. There we go. Should be coming up momentarily.
While this is coming up, I can speak to some of the other items that I saw in the chat as far as questions from parents. There is a great concern, I'm seeing this repeatedly from parents about the hands-on component for CTE. And we agree, hands-on is not something that can necessarily take place in a virtual environment, which is why here, this organization, Questar 3, has committed to serving our students 100% of the time in the classroom. However, we understand that there may be other circumstances that would preclude students from coming to our campus, whether that is a family choice, it's a medical condition, or it's subject to the decision of their school district. So we are working with our teachers to be creative. Our teachers showed incredible creativity last semester and provided opportunities to our students while they were home to engage in hands-on activities. They were not exactly what they would experience in a classroom, but they were simulated, and we saw some wonderful results. We saw students building things that they had never thought they could do at home because they had not considered the raw materials. So they got creative and used the things that were available to them by applying the same concepts and skills that they would have learned in the classroom. So no, it's not a replacement and it's not perfect, but under the circumstances, it's going to be the best that we can do, and we will do the best we can to make sure that your child is still engaged. Thank you, Kim, for putting this up. So I'm going to go back to instruction, access to reliable technology. Here at Questar 3, we have already placed an order for a variety of devices for our students. Those include Chromebooks and laptops, in addition to access points, so that students can have the needed technology in their hands at home should they be in a remote environment. The hands-on learning component is something that I just addressed. And Kim, I'm having a hard time seeing your screen entirely. There's some blocks there. So it says student families not sure of what assignments are due. We understand that communication and constant communication is required. And that is something that our teachers have committed to. We actually made sure to provide some level of engagement and continuity with all of our students very frequently last semester during COVID. And we will be continuing that. You may have heard from our teachers if you have a returning student or if you have a new student. Know that our teachers will call, text, email, reach out to students via Facebook. Our teachers are committed to doing whatever it takes to make sure that your child is engaged. And open communication with staff. And of course, that communication goes both ways, as well as our teachers reaching out to the students. We hope that you will also reach out to our teachers.
Sorry, my computer is not being the best sharer right now, but we should see that line. Okay, the communications one. This is just an opportunity for us to summarize for you ways in which we're really trying to stay communicated and stay connected with you during this time. We do have Jason Laz on with us, who's through the communications department, and we've been working very closely with him and the others in that department to develop different ways to stay in touch, and this forum is a perfect example of that. We've been sending out weekly updates. We've spoken about the parent forum, the parent surveys. We have a frequently asked questions section on our website that's specific to the reopening plan. And the website link that you see down there in green is the section of our website that's devoted to reopening. That's where you will find all materials that we have created, our health and safety outline, our frequently asked questions, all of our surveys, our reopening plan that we submitted to SED. So that's all there for your resource so that you can continue to find out more information as it develops, because this is such a continuous change event. Jason, is there anything else that we want to add on that?
No, I think you hit it. We're really trying to collect all of our information related to reopening in one place so that it's easy for all of our families to find what they need. So if you go to the questar.org/reopening page, like Kim said, you'll find the reopening plan, a link to the form to update your contact information for reopening communications, the parent survey that Anthony was talking about, links to future parent forum meetings will be on that page, as well as the health and safety guidelines and a list of frequently asked questions that will be added to as needed. You'll also find, once complete, you'll find the links to these parent forum recordings and the presentations. Last week's is up there now. Tonight's will be added hopefully by the end of this week.
I think Kim is attempting to wrap up the presentation so that we can transition to the special education presentation. The chat is still open and available, and all of us are receiving and responding to the chats. Anthony, did you want to put up the special education presentation and pick up from there?
Yes, Denise, thank you very much. And Jason, I don't know if there's an opportunity to put in the chat a link to a separate Zoom. One of the problems with Zoom is it won't let me run two parallel Zooms, and I don't want to cut people off from this one. So Jason, if we can create a new Zoom and just include it in the chat, that way people can copy and paste it into, and we'll start a new meeting.